everybody. I'm Martin. I'm happy to be here at OP. Thank you, OP, for hosting this event, for having me do this. It's the first time I'm making this specific presentation. And for me, personally, it's also like the culmination of the last few years in robotics. As you know, every year we get to learn more and have more experiences. But I'd say the last few years, the experiences we've had with my team were very significant for all of us, and I'm happy to show you how and why this is the case. And I'm happy to see that there's a lot of you interested into what culture means and how it can affect your teams. So for me, that's me in my first year of FRC. So I was a student from 2015 to 2019. A mentor since with 3544 Spartiate in a public school from Montreal North. I was lead coach during the pandemic up to 2024. I went back to full-time school. I co-founded 8236 Ecobotic in a cégep. Complicated thing, COVID happened, but you know I have that kind of experience as well. And this year I'm wearing my FIRST Global shirt. So my team is also representing Canada at FIRST Global in a month. So it's a pretty exciting time, and my team is working right now on the robot. So significant to the presentation and to my experience with my team is in 2024 we won the Engineering Inspiration Award in Montreal at the Montreal Regional. And if you accept the 2020 Safety Award in Sherbrooke, in a 15-year span, those are the only awards that our team has ever won. So 2024, on Mills team, that converted to the Team Spirit Award, so in Houston at Worlds. And last year, because it always has to come all at once, we won the Team Spirit Award and the regional event in Montreal for 2025. Personally, I have a minor in cultural mediation from UQAM. I also was an FEC technical advisor with Robotics FIRST Quebec for the 2022-2023 season. That was short-lived. I am an industrial design student. I'm finishing this spring. So I also do, in fact, in my team, I haven't included it, but I'm a strategy and design mentor. And it's important for me to say this because I still think that culture plays an even more important role than design or strategy in our teams. And I do think our success comes first and foremost from the culture that we've cultivated as a team. I also love the team. I love FIRST. I like the Canadians. I watch anime. I like cultural events, music and stuff, and robotics as the general thing. And so today, to set some expectations and what our goals will be more or less. So identify types of team dynamics and culture. So I will ask you all to participate into this because I do think that some of the best answers we'll have today will come from you guys. My experience is only my experience, but together, when sharing, I think it will really be something more rich for everyone here. Connect some theories to real FRC experiences. I know you will relate to almost everything that I will say here. That's the goal. It's to see, okay, I lived through that, so those are the words. That's why this happened in this situation, the good and the bad as well. And yeah, I'll try to stay on time. I don't know if it'll be extremely short or extremely long. We'll see at the end. So, first I'll start with some context. Then we'll go into describing what group culture is. Then observing team dynamics. And as for 4 point, peak team spirit experience. Number 4 basically is the story, the narrative I have with my own team. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this last or first. So I wanted to ask you guys, do you want to hear about my team's story first or at the end? So raise your hand if you want to hear it first. Okay, so we'll go at the end. All right, let's go with that. Context. Why speak about culture in FIRST? Well, culture shapes impact. So robots may win matches, but it's the shared values, the behaviors, the traditions that determine whether a team leaves a lasting impact on its members and community. So you can put all of your efforts and money and mentors and everything at building an extremely strong robot, but your team still needs to be a team and hold together through the good and through the bad. And God knows we have bad sometimes. So it really needs to own its own culture. So yeah, culture drives sustainability. So it ensures that the team stays together, that the students stay. When you have a first meeting with 100 students and the second meeting there's only 30, there's a message that you really need to send to the team, that they need to understand what they're getting a part of. And it's not just another program, but it's a special thing. And culture needs to feel special and unique. And culture also connects us globally. We all share the FIRST culture, the FIRST ethos. That's why we're all here today, coming from as far as Montreal or Longueuil and other parts of Ontario. So really FIRST brings us together, and that's something we do need to cherish and to cultivate even more as a community. Also, it's something I noticed while preparing for this presentation. Today, at 2056 Ways to Inspire, I noticed that the presentations we had were only two regarding mechanical design. There's only two regarding programming and electrical. There's one other plus another FTC presentation, but 5 are about strategy, and 6 are about team sustainability and awards. To me, it kind of sends a message, because Ontario is a very strong region, not just in Canada, but across the world. So it's fair to say, from my point of view, from a Quebec team, that the culture of FIRST in Ontario is much more cultivated than it is in other regions in the world. And the fact that this is what is represented and this is what interests the team really orients the discussion on what is important for teams to be successful and to develop further. So I wanted to share that insight with you guys, because I do think it is very significant about what is happening in FIRST in Ontario and what could happen in other regions as well, maybe in just a few years. So before talking about group cultures as a whole, maybe I can talk about what culture is, more or less, because it's very hard. I did have a college class on the definitions of culture. There are about over 200 definitions, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but I did kind of try to summarize something for you guys. So in FIRST, culture is the invisible set of shared values, norms, and practices that shape how a team collaborates, competes, and inspires. We all have those traditions and norms and values we do have that are unique to our teams, whether they are intentional or not. And that is extremely, extremely important to say. So culture is always there, whether you take control of it, they still exist, and they can either support or even sabotage your goals. And we'll go into it further into the presentation. Culture is always visible in competition. You see the spirit of each team at the competition. You see the teams that get along well together. You see the teams that are focused and they know what their goals are. You see the teams that are having fun all over the place as well. And sometimes, sadly, you see some very disorganized teams as well. And a lot of it is, yes, due in part to their preparation, but it's also due in part to their culture. Because as you know, and you might relate with this a lot, but your preparation for competition is never perfect. And sometimes, because of time restraints and everything, preparation is sometimes even non-existent for competitions, which is pretty sad. But if you rely on culture and on your team and group dynamics, you can still solve a lot of the problems you can face due to lack of preparations. We are just faced with a ton of tasks and stuff to prepare for competitions. It's just not realistic for everyone to stay, to do everything that is needed. And I have an example of that later on as well. Culture makes FIRST fun and significant. So when you graduate from your team, you need to remember not as just a robotics team, but you really need to feel the connection to your team. And no matter what that connection is, if you do have profound feelings and you know, nostalgia when talking or thinking about your team, I think your team did a good job on developing and establishing a positive culture. And it can go so many ways, and we'll look at that as well. But yeah, it's when culture, it's what really transformed the robotics project into the best experience in high school. And truly, I don't remember who said that, maybe Dean, but FIRST is the hardest fun you'll ever have, and it's just truer and truer and more true every single year. Okay, so about describing group culture. So far so good? Okay, so it is evident that groups do not only possess their own cultures with established distinctions, norms and values and rituals, but that they are also connected to a broader society embedded within larger systems. I did quote Simon Landry, translate the translation, the quotation. Basically what it means is a group culture is like a subculture. So your team has its own culture within the culture of FIRST. FIRST has its own culture within the culture of maybe extracurriculars activities or in the scope of school programs, depending on how you're looking at it. As a fun fact, what I would consider the dominant culture in Canada right now is just work. You know, everyone works. And sadly enough, that's the dominant culture. In other times in history, it might have been family, it might have been religion. Right now, I think it's work. But it is how it is. So group culture, every team has its own vibe. You notice them when you meet them, you greet them. They have their own priorities, their own way of seeing the competition. Culture is not just what the team does, but how the team does it together. So, it's a humid day. So, yeah, when a team does it together. So when faced with a challenge, when you look at your own team, how does your team react? What are the first reflexes? How will your team tackle the challenges that are faced with you? Those are not things you can usually prepare for, except if you have amazing preparation for everything, but it doesn't happen. So do you go toward the students? Do you do a meeting? Do you do a call? Do you go to a mentor, a specific mentor? What is going on? How do you react? And culture forms, as I said already, whether you manage it or not. And what can also happen within a team is that you have multiple cultures developing within your own team. I won't go too much into that. But when I said that you need to manage your culture and how it's messaged and everything, communicated, that's a kind of a part of it. If you have multiple cultures and multiple like groups or stuff going on in your team, that's not very good. And as a quick example of that, last year my team, for many months, we've had a few meetings. There were two meetings. The meetings on the Wednesdays and the Fridays. And there was a set of mentors on the Wednesdays and a set of mentors on the Fridays that were completely exclusive. That means that there wasn't a mentor that did both for any set of reasons. And the same happened with the students, because those students work with those mentors for those projects, and those students work with other mentors for other projects. And it's not very good on a managing perspective, because the communication isn't happening. But at the same time, not only from the management perspective, but from the culture perspective, things develop. The perspectives shape themselves more and more week after week. So at a certain point, you're like, okay, so we're going over there. And they're saying, no, we're going over there. And the conflict that this creates is a very bad conflict, because it's hard to resolve easily, because you already went too far in a certain direction and developed your own mind on certain things. So really the key dimensions you need to remind yourself about group culture is the norms and the values. So and I'll ask you for examples later, but really the unwritten rules, the specific values, the things you do. Do you shake hands when you come into the room? Do you say hi? Do you do high five? Do you do fist bumps? Those are the kind of really things, maybe more rituals as well, that shape how your team is. What are the symbols, like the mascots, the chants? Do you do things regularly? I know there are maybe potluck going on, sometimes it's the parents. Maybe you do barbecue, like we have one here today. So what is that kind of thing? And secret meetings, like do you all raise your hand if there's a tool or a part or a subsystem that your team named that has no link with the actual part, tool, or system? Raise your hand. Yeah. So that's one of the best examples of culture, because I know every team has it. You know, that's not the key, that's the, I don't know, the dragon, because it looks like a dragon. Or whether other reasons, like so many reasons why you would name something else. And identity and belonging. So how my team is different from other teams. You really need to feel like your team is its own thing. So what makes your team stand out and significant to your team member? Significant is important. So this is your turn now. So can you guys think about something, a cultural element of your team that shapes your team's culture? Don't be shy. Yeah.
This was in the past, but I was driving with my, well, it was later on our mech lead to the head mentor's home.
Okay.
It was pretty dark.
Mm-hmm.
That's the head mentor. It was pretty dark and raining. And unfortunately, his driveway is designed in a way that there's a pillar in it. And I can't see anything. My car doesn't have sensors or cameras. So I back into the driveway, don't see the pillar. We bump into the pillar, don't hear it, push the pillar completely over, and then it crashes down. So now on our team, we have like an inside joke of you back into a pillar. We did it at Mary's board, for example.
So back into a pillar. So the fun thing is, if you say back into a pillar within your own team, everybody gets it.
Oh yeah.
If I say back into a pillar to someone that never heard that story, it doesn't mean anything. That's what culture does. It like you have your own references and stuff.
Oh, he's got the video right there. Yeah, we don't hear it happen. We're in the car.
No, don't pause it there. It's big, but it falls over.
On the big screen.
So we don't hear it at all.
I like how they pause. They're like, "Are we running into something?" Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
Was that an edited sound effect?
No.
That's what it sounded like.
But you know what?
Your pillar was aluminum.
That's that just makes this example so much better, because that means he had that video on hand. Like, it was so impactful for him that it was just right there, you know?
He was in the car.
He was in the car. But that's really excellent. That's the kind of thing, you know, that does what it does. It shapes your team. Does somebody else has any other example? Yeah.
As a joke, we put a picture of a K-pop idol on our robot, and then last weekend we won the event, so now I guess we have to keep doing that. So we're calling it structural Subin because it's Subin. So I guess every year we're gonna have to pick a new K-pop idol and put it on there because it works.
Yeah, and that, you know, I can add an example from myself, and that comes from another team sharing their own culture. Is that when they went to Detroit in 2018, another team put a 10 cents with epoxy on their robot cart, and they said it's for good luck. All right. In 2019, they came to visit us, and they brought a 10 cents. And they epoxied that 10 cents on our robot cart. So honestly, I don't know from where that tradition started, because if a team did it to the team and did it to us, like where did it actually starts? But that's the kind of fun thing in culture. Like the new students today, they look at the 10 cents on the robot cart and like, why is it stuck there? And it's a story to share and tell, and you know it's for good luck. You have to understand it's for good luck. Some other stuff, we do a lot of stuff, of course. And the thing with our team especially is that we do, we encourage a lot of those behaviors. Like if you want to stick a picture of someone on the wall, as long as it's not a discriminatory or whatever. Sure, whatever. You have the 2020 ball, the yellow ball. Student cut a cardboard mustache, the Google safety goggles on it, and put a headset, protective headset. They called him Safety Bob. And Safety Bob is still there, like 5 years later. And the new students, they look at him and like, okay, they take the headset because they need it, but they put it back on Safety Bob. So that's what, there's no reason to do that. It doesn't make your robot better. It doesn't really make your team better, but it makes your team have a stronger culture, more cultivated culture. It's gonna take a while. All that stuff. So culture influences fun, recruitment, retention, and resilience. Who doesn't want that, right? So I have here some extreme like archetypes of cultures, and I don't think any of your team is fully represented by this. But I still wanted to put it because I know maybe it's a mix of those three things. So there are performance first cultures. So you might think 2056 is very performance first, and I'm sure it's very important, but I'm sure it's not the whole part as well. There are spirit first cultures. Your team is just happy to be there and is enjoying their time and proud of what they've achieved in their robot, and that's also a very valid culture to have. There's also cultures based around specific things or objectives. So maybe your team wants to win a specific award or has a distinguished personality for some reason and really wants to bring that part of the team forward in competition. Usually, yeah, and they each come with a risk of burnout, risk of weaker execution, or a risk of losing the scope if you focus too much onto something that isn't really a part of the competition. But finding your own culture, your own goal is extremely, extremely important. Yeah. So let's do this quickly, maybe one or two answers max. Can you describe what your team's culture is based around from the last few years? It's not defined necessarily. Maybe I'll say with my team, it was a 2024 moment when we realized that our culture was really based. We were surprised to notice there was a lot of discipline in our culture. So we set the bar high, and it's also based around pushing the students going further than what they think they can achieve. So that kind of combination brought us to do more again and again and again, because our team was never known for anything before that point. So that's like something in the culture that we noticed. Also, all the communal meals, all the breaks we took, it was also something important for us, our team culture. There were unfortunately some meetings that we did not work at all. But we just spent the whole time talking and sharing our experiences and our challenges we do have, and the students they do have a lot as well. Yeah.
I think ours is more growth, long-term growth focused. Like every season competitively, we're thinking, how can we expand our robot capabilities? This last off season, we built a robot that was our first time doing 2 degrees of freedom, arm on an elevator. And even with how we run leadership, it's very much like we're making you a student lead, not because you're going to achieve everything in your term, but whoever you appoint after you, they'll continue on your work. And so from the perspective of the robot, from the perspective of operations, we want to always keep getting better and better and better. And we've had people in the past who applied to be leads who are like, okay, I'm going to go out with a bang, and we just reject them from the position, because I know a lot of teams are like that, where they have kind of these grade 12 leads who are kind of just like, this is my last season, we're going to go out with a bang. But on our team, it's very much like, who's going to come after you and who comes after that and after that.
Yeah. And this part of the presentation does connect very well with the next part about team dynamics more specifically. One more thing with our team's culture is also the fact that we're proud of where we come from, both as individuals but also the neighborhood and the school, because it's pretty, I guess it's pretty easy to bring that forward. But if you come from a public school, from an impoverished neighborhood, and still finding ways to thrive, it's very easy to find pride in that. But we do leverage that part as well within our culture, that even though we come from that part of town and we have those kind of challenges, that we can still thrive. And the students individually are extremely proud of that as well. And it's important to shape us with the rest of the culture. And that allows us to say, okay, well, we're going to push forward, and we're going to do those challenges and try those things that are supposedly hard. So observing team dynamics. At the heart of an effective team dynamic is a shared vision. A clear understanding of why we work together. Without this, energy, engagement, and collaboration can become misaligned. So how we move together is like the heartbeat of the team. So as I said earlier, like how we move even though we are not organized, how organized are we still? Dynamics can support or sabotage the culture if unobserved, same as with culture, group culture. And every team members, whether they are high or low energy, has an impact in the team dynamics. You do have to take into account even those that come every few weeks, once a month. They are important, they do impact the team dynamic. So you can't just forget them or allow a situation to like this to happen for too long. So the way the team behaves and interacts over time, how energy, conflict, and collaboration flows through the group. So that's the perspective of team dynamics. So this is to me, perhaps the most important thing of the presentation. You need to have a clear, common goal that is unique to your team and specific. Everyone has to know what's the goal. Ideally, pretty early on in the season, maybe in October or November. Are we going to Worlds? Do we do Impact? Is the goal just to do the playoffs once? You need to know that very early on and to be extremely clear. If you can write it on the walls, write it on the walls. That's your metric for success. This is how every team can win, is when you have your own goal. Because it's not true, and you know it. There's only one alliance that wins the competition, but it's not just 3 teams that win by doing FRC or FIRST. So it's extremely important to have that common goal. And if you have to spend 2 weeks or a month discussing that, do it. But it needs to be clear. Having a common goal will help for the further steps of team dynamics, because it's how you see how coherent you are. If you are coherent, you can be cohesive. And this is how you bring the next level of team dynamics, is when you have a clear common goal, you are cohesive and coherent with the goal. And so without a common goal, your team is free to interpret the challenge how they want. So So uncontrolled, this will lead to hard to solve conflicts. Because when you have the same goal, you can have a debate on the best practices or the best way to approach a problem or how to achieve the goal. If you don't have the same goals and you want to argue about something, it's much harder and fundamental. And personally, I think discussion you should have much earlier on at a certain point. So, yeah, parentheses. One of the big reasons I'm focusing on that with my team is damage control. Because I've seen what a lack of organization did to our team. And I did try to do the steps of organizing everything and everyone, and I tried it. It doesn't work. You can't just give a task for everyone for every single day. They won't do it. It doesn't happen like that. It's a lot more organic than that. So that's why I've shaped this through my path in FIRST towards strategy and then organizational strategy. And now my answer is within culture. How do you shape the culture to have your team do what is important for the team? Always the team first. Okay. The next two slides are the theory slides. Good. So roles and axes. So those are the organic relations that you can find within your team. And you also have the organic roles. So for each of these axes, the work axis, the affection axis, and the power axis, you could say the relations axis as well. You always have a leader. And you have emitters, you have receivers, and you have satellites. If you're very good and lucky, maybe you don't have satellites. But it's very rare. Because let's say me, I could be a leader in the power dynamics, but I could be a receiver in the affection dynamics, and a satellite in the work axes. And if you really wanted to, you could do the work for every team member in your team. How do they position themselves? And those are organic. So you can't just say, you're the captain of power, you're the captain of relations. No, it doesn't happen. It's organic. And then it also changes through time. So maybe for the month of November, this mentor bought a supercar. And for that specific month, there's a hype around the fact that mentor got a supercar. And that's fun and all. And the kids want to speak to that mentor, and the mentor is excited to show his supercar. But in December, the next month, the hype is over. So the affection leadership transfers to something else. Maybe to the one that organizes the best Christmas party. I don't know. So that does changes through time. So to go more to this, so the work axis is really how the members contribute to getting the work done. So it's really the working people. Doesn't need to be the leaders, doesn't need to be the captain, but maybe the one that stays the latest to work on a certain project, who is most motivated to work on a certain project. Yeah. So you can also see the people that don't contribute to work. They come, they give ideas, they help, they laugh, they joke around. 5:30, they are still essential to the team. That's the important thing. Because you have all of those members in your team. Those that are very enthusiastic but don't work a lot. Those that are very silent, but they are extremely focused on what they do. And every team member is essential because of that. Because you need strong leaders in every one of those axes to develop your team dynamics further. And as I said, they evolve as well. You don't force people into those, but you have to make sure, as much as you can, as organically as you can, that those are covered. If you don't have those in your dynamics, your team is at a risk of crumbling. But usually, when you have 5 to 10 people at the very least present and somehow doing some work, those do form pretty organically. Is this pretty clear for this part? The next part, one of my favorites as well, are the stages of group cohesion. So, to look at this, we evaluate primary and secondary tensions. Primary tensions are related to structure, roles, norms, and interpersonal uncertainties. And the secondary tensions are related to differences in opinions, approaches, priorities, or interpretations of the team goal. So that's why a common goal, a common vision is essential, because that allows you to get a cohesive team. So, the first stage of group cohesion. The members don't know why they're here. They don't know why other members are there. Usually within the first month of a pre-season, you're all in the first stage of group cohesion. The roles have not been defined yet. You don't know the people don't know each other. We don't know, even from the previous step, we don't know who sits where because there's just so many unknowns. People are usually polite and careful with their interactions. They don't try to bring conflict to the table. So they just watch and see what's going on. Yeah. Second stage, primary tensions are fading. So people are starting to know each other. They're starting to get comfortable. The roles are starting to be more defined, both the organic roles, but also the real team roles. Like maybe some captains show up, or some students take more leadership in certain roles. The presence of apparent leaders do become obvious. There's a tendency to develop more on ideas, and there is place for some conflict. Notice that I do talk about conflict in each of those steps, because there is always conflict. And the focus, there's a focus on trying to include everyone. So the second stage is people coming together. Okay, the team is coming together. What are our goals? Okay, is this what we're going for? Yes, all right. Oh, I thought about this. Okay. So usually this step comes ideally before your kickoff. If you're extremely good, and that's one of the things we do in our team, is that we structure our first meetings so that we reach the second stage of group cohesion in a week or two. It's pretty hard, but with a lot of meetings, a lot of group activities, getting to know each other, that's why we get to do all the icebreakers and everything. That's what it does, is it brings you to the next stage of group cohesion. If you know why the people are there around you and what they do, you can find your place in this team. And that's extremely, extremely important, because that's why people don't stay in teams, because they don't find their role in the team. That also allows us to have a pretty good retention rate. So in 2024, we had about 80 to 90 registrations, and we've kept 60 students, which is excellent retention rate. So we're pretty optimistic for this year to have even more students. Third stage is usually where most teams will sit, coming the season, even during the events. It's the secondary tensions, and it's hard to go past that stage. The roles are set, or close to be set. So everyone knows what they have to do. The leadership of the team is open to be questioned. So at this point, you're not figuring out what to do anymore, or what's your place in the team. You're figuring out how to achieve the goal. That's the secondary tensions. And it demands a lot more work to hold your team together when you're at this point. Conflicts will get explosive, because everyone will have their own perspective of things. That's where group culture will help alleviate some of those explosive conflicts, because if you have a strong culture within your team, you will avoid explosive conflicts, because you will get closer to the fourth stage of cohesion. In this third stage, people will assimilate a lot more with the team. So that's where you do group activities, where maybe students will hang out after school or during weekends, and even mentors will hang out together. So that's a good place to be, the third stage of cohesion. It's okay to have conflicts. Just be prepared for that. And also, it's the stage where you find out that the team might not be compatible with everyone. So some people at this stage might leave by themselves or be kicked out, because you've reached a certain point. If you are figuring out how to reach your objectives, and some people are still figuring out how to fit in within your team, they will feel apart from the team. And if you go into your recruitment with your experienced team, that is either in the third, probably in the third stage of cohesion, and you try to integrate the new students into that third stage, it will never work. You really need to go back to the second stage, tell your older, more experienced students to hold back, take the time to open up to the new students, to let them integrate the team. That is what integration means in this perspective here. And the fourth stage of cohesion is really what you want to reach for, and is the best cohesion you can have. So the roles are set, but don't even need to be specified. And I have the example that I'll talk about later on. The leadership is respected. So no more contested. The leadership has proven itself and is aligned with the goal that everyone agrees on. The conflicts can be intense still, but are resolved for the greater good. So this is the part where you can have an argument or a debate over, let's say, a subsystem you're interested in doing, or a project you're going to do for impact. Both ideas can be very high stake, but you take the time to debate, and in the end, recognize what is in the best interest of your team. If you're really cohesive with your goal, you should be able to accept what is the best outcome more objectively. It's not as simple as that, but it does help a whole bunch to resolve a lot of the conflicts. And in the end, you want to have those conflicts because they will lead to the best outcomes. If your idea is pretty good, and you think it's pretty good, you have a good reason to defend it. But if the other idea is much better, you hear about it, you defend your idea, he defends or she defends her idea, and it ends up being better, it's better for everyone to go with the better idea. The trust towards the team is high in the fourth stage, and it's easily at risk of falling back to the earlier stages. So usually the fourth stage of cohesion is pretty fleeting in time. So it's not realistic to expect that you'll have a fourth stage of cohesion for years. It's usually around competition season, and when stakes are high, that the team really gets together when it's important. And I know most of you might have felt that at some point or another where the team really, really came together and did some stuff you never would have imagined. So I have a quick question for you all. So what stage do you think your team was in at kickoff for the 2025 season and versus your last event? Where do you think you reached? With a little explanation if you want to share that. So what stage was your team at kickoff versus what stage were they at your last event? Yeah.
I guess I'll go back to 2025 and the last event being Worlds, but secondary tensions were probably where we were at kickoff. We had a lot of experienced leads, which was good, and we had a lot of experienced mentors. And the new members, we were able to integrate them quickly. By the time we got to going to Worlds, we had kind of gone on this upward trajectory in terms of competitive performance, and we even had a lot of the parents interested to the point where they were coming with us to Worlds and volunteering their time and taking time off work. So I feel like we definitely reached that kind of fourth stage when we got to Worlds.
Yeah, I'm sure that when those parents came together to help the team, it really felt like the roles were set but weren't specified, right? Like they each took a part of what they saw was necessary for the team, but they understood what had to be done. Yeah. Does anyone else have something? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that at kickoff we were definitely at the primary tensions, not even at secondary. I think kickoff really helps that transition, but at the start we're definitely primary. And then most of the season I think we're at cohesion, and then kind of near the end it kind of like fell back a little bit, but I think by ECMP we're definitely back in cohesion. I think that we probably for most of the season were at secondary tensions, but we just didn't notice because we like had a very competitive robot this year and it helped us not actually have to face conflicts very often. But once things started, like our robot actually showed signs of like wear and tear, then we kind of had some bigger conflicts that kind of playing 2 and 4 and starting that.
Interesting. And you understood well that it changes through the season. It goes back, it comes back. Yeah, that's great. It's almost over. So I want to speak about my own team's peak dynamics experience. How does it happen that a team can win the Team Spirit Award in Houston? How does it happen? So, of course, you have to expect that we had a level 4 of group cohesion within our team by that time. I think we had a level 4 of group cohesion by the time we qualified at our regional. And the distinction we had is that for the regional event, the preparation, the roles were set and managed extremely well. Coming to Houston, there were no roles. We did not have the time to prepare. But still, everyone knew what to do. No mentor had to tell anyone what to do, basically. We knew who was presenting. We knew who was doing media. We knew who was doing scouting. We knew what the drivers had to do, what the strategy team had to do, what the pit team had to do. We didn't even have to tell, okay, who's coming to set up the pit. We knew who was coming to set up the pit. That's the kind of cohesion we had. For everyone in that team, this Houston experience in 2024 was the most significant team experience for everyone. Not just in FIRST, but all school or work-related experiences. That's something from my point of view, but it truly did feel like everyone was a main character. So everyone had a role in it, really a significant role. Everyone was doing something, walking, running, speaking with other teams, other people, with the mentors, trying to do I don't know what they were doing, honestly. Because coming back to the hotel, I heard stuff that other people did, other mentors did, other students did, and I'm like, I had no idea this even happened. But it's so great that it did. And I was just happy for my team that it did. And I had to, as a lead coach, to interact, to ask people to do that kind of stuff. Or even be there to make sure that it happened. But it wasn't necessary at that point. It also was a culmination of 3 years of preparation and growth. So in that team, at least 75% of this team was with the FRC team for at least 3 years or 2 years. So that's also a significant part of how and why we reached that point. That significant point that our team has never reached in 15 years. And you should probably do that within your own team. Say, in 3 years we're going to Worlds. In 3 years we're winning that event. In 3 years, because it sets expectations. And when I did that at first, because I had a lot of secondary threes, which is 9th grade here, they believed me. They said, okay, sure, that competition is hard, but we're gonna work hard, and should make sense by within 2 or 3 years, we reach the level that we need to win or achieve this goal. So for 3 years, our goal was simply to go to Worlds, because our team had never went to Worlds. We didn't know how, but we wanted to. Through those 3 years, we understood our own strength by experience. So what works well for us? At the beginning of those 3 years, I don't think we've had a defined culture. At the end of those 3 years, it's much easier to say that's what the culture was. We built our team's culture. Today, we simply cultivate what we have, what we define as a team. And my team, even though it's a 3,000 number, it's a pretty brand new team because we had to reshape everything since COVID. The teachers left, everybody left, so I took over. So it's basically a brand new team from COVID. The capability for everyone to respond well to any situation. That's how we won. So the judges came to the pit, and the worst situation happened. Charles, who was our programmer and our judge presenter for the robot part, thought they were the robot judges. So he started talking about the robot and why the name of the robot was Rob. The robot name was Rob. So he started talking about it, and he noticed they were not the robot judges. So he started making signs to the people nearby. And the team members nearby started to gather. So two more came, and within 2 minutes, there were 10 students around the judges. Usually you don't plan for 10 people, 10 students to be around the judges. That's not plan A, that's not plan B, that's not plan C. The actual students I had to present got there last. But every one of those students, what they did is they talked about their own experience. And they talked about why the team is important for them, what the team brought for each of them, the unique things for each of those students. That's why I said they were each like a main character, because they each had their own story of why the team is important to them. And those 10 students got to tell that story to the judges. And I wasn't a spectator of that scene, another mentor was, but that's what I got told. And the judges simply left, looking, I guess, pretty happy. But that's the judges' presentation that allowed us to win the Team Spirit Award in Houston. It wasn't the script, it wasn't the preparation, it was simply the demonstration of that cohesion, of that group culture, and the team dynamics that the students themselves on the spot created with the judges. And that feeling truly was special. What about you guys? Do you have any experiences of those peak moments, those peak experiences that happen, maybe during a competition or in preparation of a competition? Yeah.
When my team was up for Rookie All-Star at the district championship, I was allowed to be the mentor as an observer. So we had a mad dash to scramble. Okay, who's going to go in for this interview? We weren't quite as organized as we would have liked to have admitted at the time, but we had a decent business plan of people who wrote it winning. From 5 different nations, 4 different continents represented. We're a very multicultural team. And when they were speaking, one of them started to tear up because he was mentioning where he came from and how his region is fairly impoverished, and this gave him the opportunity. And we all started crying in front of the judges, and that was a really great experience because we all got to open up about what made this team unique in that moment. And I think that's what really won over the judges, but also it allowed that group who then became alumni, they still visit us every chance they get, every time they're not in exams. The Waterloo effect is crazy, but we see them sometimes. And that core group of alumni from that rookie season achieved level 4, achieved that cohesion, and that was really impressive to see.
No doubt, no doubt. That's awesome. Does anyone else want to share something? Well, in this case, I hope you like this presentation. I hope it will help you view your teams in maybe a different way, a different perspective, and help you guys for the coming season. Are there any questions? Yeah.
What kind of group activities, like you mentioned, primary teachers, but what kind of group activities did you do within your team? Like,
Yeah.
school?
Do you know the game of Werewolf? A lot
Is
of
it like
that.
mocking?
Yeah, a lot of that. A lot of that and forced. So the saying was, everyone has, during weekends, at least everyone has to do one game. So we got the whole team, student and mentors, against their will, to participate in a werewolf game. After that, some people continued for hours. Some others went back to work. But that's like maybe one of the rituals we have. Also, that came after Houston, but one of our mentors was trying to cheer us up. So at the beginning of the Saturday, thinking we weren't selected and didn't win anything, started shaking everyone's hand and saying, "Félicitations, congratulations." And she shook everybody's hands. And that kind of stuck. And then we won the award. And he did it again, but this time everybody did it. And that's a ritual that stuck, because even today, when there's the occasion, we go, Félicitations. In a kind of serious way, I don't know why. But Félicitations. And we just laugh at it, because we know that's the reference. So there's all kinds of rituals. It doesn't have to be complex. It just has to be bring your team together. That's really the important part. Any other questions? It is 11, 6, 7. So that pretty much, yeah.
What would you do to keep your team's culture from not dying, basically?
It's very hard. I have not talked about it. The biggest vectors of culture in your teams are the mentors. Your mentors reflect what your mentors reflect on the students is extremely important. If your mentors are not very polite with each other, your students will tend to not be very polite with each other too. If your mentors are very professional, your students will tend to be very professional as well. So that's actually one of the most significant things, is that whether you are OP or a rookie team or an old team that never had any success in competition, the mentors are still the best and the most important vectors of culture. So how do you keep the culture from dying is through the mentors. And more than in training or institutional knowledge or whatnot that you can have to be performant, the mentors carry the culture from season to season, whether you want it or not. Yeah. Any questions? If not, I'm still here for a few minutes. And really thank you all for attending. Yeah?
What are some ways that have helped your team include students who maybe feel like excluded?
Yeah. I'd say that's a lot of the mentor's job. But the first meetings, that's I think where it's most important. We take things slow. We go back to square one. That might not be the perspective of every team, because I know teams want to perform and they have to build on what has been done before to keep performing and keep competing. But we take the time to go to square one and bring our more experienced students back to square one as well. We improve our training, we improve our activities year after year, but we take the time to go back to square one to give the chance for everyone to jump on the boat and be a part of the adventure. Unfortunately, sometimes they miss the boat, but we make sure that there is a boat at the starting line that they can jump on and have the experience. But I think you have also to be aware that there are rarely, but at least one or two kids sometimes every year that are very incompatible with the rest of your team. Because if you want to build a certain team, a certain culture, and have a certain objective, it is possible that you will have very incompatible elements within that team as well. But they're usually not the people that get most involved. They're usually people that stay in the sides. They say, there's nothing to do, while there is so many things to do. Well, it's because they're either not interested or they don't want to work. So that's usually the elements that you have to remove sometimes with your teams. But you really need to give them a chance, and every chance you get. As a mentor, that was actually mainly my role. I really took the time to make sure for weeks and weeks and weeks that that student really did not want to work. So taking them by the hand, showing them everything I can, trying to interest them in anything I could, and if it truly did not work, give them to another mentor, and if that not worked either, then that student maybe is not for the team. Yeah.
Would you ask the student to leave the team at that point?
Yes. Because they're losing their time. They're on their phone, if they're not interested or they don't want to work, yeah, we would. Something that makes it easy for our team is that it's a free team to be a part of. I know it's more complicated when you have registrations, but we see it as a selection when you go to a football camp or a sports camp, there are selections for the team. So that's usually how we go about it. We do say it pretty straightforward that there is a selection just to make sure the students are serious about being a part of the team, because in our school we can't charge them for registration. But it's pretty rare, I'd say. In the last 4 years we've had maybe a total of 3 students that had to leave, that we had to remove from the group because they were just either not serious enough or very disturbing. And it happens sometimes. So it's not a lot, but it happens.
Do you do like a warning system or reach out to the parents? Like you have
Everything.
procedures
Everything
for
with the school, with the principals, like every step had to be made
Yeah,
before
yeah.
making sure that's the decision that had to be made. And one of those students did try year after year, but never worked out. It's really that, yeah. It happens,
Yeah.
but it's not a